You're listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands, with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan.
So Sharan, we are recording on the day of Sankranti actually, and it is difficult to find Shanti because there seems to be some music in your background.
Yes, there are a lot of festivals going on in my society. So we live with the music and we use it to enhance the ambience of the recording today.
Very good. So, okay, to all the listeners who are there, please excuse if you hear some music in the background. It is possibly a music in your ears when you're listening to this wonderful story from Sharan. So, Sharan, looking forward to some storytelling from your end today. And the specific reason why I want you to possibly speak about a story is that, as opposed to mine, you have had a cross country experience of doing your marketing roles in a few companies. So just tell us about any of your marketing experience which was really, really profound for you, eye opening for you.
That's funny you should put it that way, because one of my most eye-opening marketing events actually happened in India, but when I was based outside India.
Okay, excellent.
And this is when I was in the UK with Reckitt, and I was leading category development for the global toilet care category. And it goes by different brand names in different countries. It's called Lysol in the US. It's called Cillit Bang in Eastern Europe, Harpic in parts of Europe, and Harpic in India, obviously. And India is among the biggest markets for Harpic, as you can imagine. And this is where I had my biggest eye-popping moment, I'd say. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a case study, but something that absolutely blew my mind happened here when Harpic with the Swachh Bharat toilets.
I remember we spoke about this earlier. Reckitt working with Government of India for Swachh Bharat. Okay, let's get into that. Go ahead.
So, yeah, you're right. This was with the Swachh Bharat program. So what had happened was, when the Indian government spoke about Swachh Bharat and they looked for a private partnership for the program, Reckitt was among the obvious choices to partner with for the government because of Dettol, Harpic and all of it. And Dettol was on full time. And it was almost like Reckitt got free endorsements from Amitabh Bachchan because he was the primary ambassador for the Swachh Bharat campaign itself. And for even Dettol, the main agenda is penetration. And the Swachh Bharat program kind of delivered huge on penetration for Dettol. And the other brand that partnered with the program, with the Swachh Bharat program, was Harpic, obviously, because toilets were being built. But Harpic, for some reason, faced severe obstacles. Not only were we not able to get it through and build penetration, but there were murmurs of NGOs going around telling people not to use Harpic. And this sounded very weird. Why would NGOs go around doing that? And the first reaction from the ground was that, no, these NGOs are always like this. They don't like corporate. And see, if that was the case, Dettol wouldn't get through.
Yes, true.
It was a little too simplistic for it to be true. And given that in India, Harpic, I think at that time itself this is back in 2016-17, where Harpic's market share was 90% of the branded toilet cleaner category in India. And I've mentioned this a few times, this number, that the branded toilet cleaner category itself is only about 30% penetrated in India. And Harpic's agenda is to drive penetration. And the entire company is kind of very touchy about this. So a nice team came down from the UK to see what was happening on ground. Why was Harpic facing such a headwind?
Okay. And you were part of that team?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you created this drama to get a paid trip to India.
Including people like my boss then accused me of this. But this is nothing but a holiday in the sense, I mean, I would have paid for this trip given what learning we had. There was tremendous penetration opportunity. And we wanted to go and confront the NGOs, saying like, what's your problem? Why can't we get Harpic to these toilets? We're giving it almost for free. And the NGOs who we thought would be very confrontational were extremely warm to us. And they engaged in proper dialogue. And what they explained to us just blew our minds. So these Swachh Bharat toilets don't have a drainage system. So what happens is, because if you have to wait for a drainage system, it requires a lot of infrastructure building. So if you plan these toilets, it'll take years for these toilets to happen. So what the government had done, government had decided to skip that part and go the traditional way, where all the waste from a toilet goes to a pit at the back of the toilet. And each toilet has got two pits. One pit is blocked off and only one pit is getting filled with waste. And roughly, for a family of 4, it takes about 2 to 2.5 years to fill one pit. When that first pit is full, they block it off with the brick. So there's a pipe coming out of the toilet and it has a Y bend in it. And then once you block it, it goes to the next pit. By the time the second pit is full, the first pit dries out into manure, which you then throw into the field and start using the first pit again.
Interesting. Okay.
And now the catch was Harpic, which sells on the main claim of 99.9% germ kill, would destroy the germs that would let the sludge convert into manure.
Oh, it needed germs to convert it into manure.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
And this is something we had no idea about. Even today, most of us don't have an idea about this. We were so disheartened. We're like, what the hell? Yeah? India is building toilets and Harpic can't be part of it because of the structure the toilets have taken. And they also told us that, see, Harpic, being an acid, these toilets are made with cement. And if there's prolonged acid usage on the cement floor, these toilets will get eroded. And the people who are getting their toilets afresh are not habituated to cleaning just the bowl, even if you give them the Harpic. They would spread it across the floor. And that erodes the toilet construction itself. So that was a double whammy. And we were told Harpic had no right to win in these toilets. And it was like in the movies, right? Just when you're turning away an opportunity, then taps his shoulder. So that's what happened with these NGOs. They said, we're not sure if you guys can help with this, but there's another problem we're facing. While we're building these toilets, people aren't using them. So can you help us get them to use these toilets? So the point is, we're not going to get any product benefit, but we have to spend time and money educating people on using these toilets. So we could, but obviously there was no real upside to that. But then, one second. So there was no real upside to that. What these NGOs then explained to us was that our toilets, right, have this U-bend, which kind of holds the water. So when you flush, water is still there in your Western toilets, right? It's there even in the Indian toilets. This U-bend with water blocks out the feedback of the bad smell that comes from these pipes, these drainage pipes. If you go to the top of your building, your drainage pipe has this perforated cap that's got fumes coming out of it, very strong fumes, because that's the drainage ka smell. That's a drainage, extremely strong smell that comes from there. So, and because these toilets the waste had to flow straight into the pit at the back, there was no U-bend. So the smell from the pit was unbearable. It was so claustrophobic and smelly that people who are not used to using these toilets preferred going back to the railway tracks or the fields. So despite building these toilets for them, the NGOs were not being able to get the people to use it because of this situation. They were like, we know it is a problem, but we need to get them to use it. That's why we built these toilets. So can you help with that? We said, that seems like an interesting problem. We'll see. We've got to basically control the malodor that comes out. So we'll see what we can do. And we went back and we said, can we create a product like this?
To reduce the smell?
Yes.
Okay.
You're listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands. Your hosts are Sudeep Chawla, marketing practitioner, business leader, and educator to advertising and marketing professionals, and Sharan Raghavan of Vitral Brand Expertise, growth consultants to consumer-facing brands and businesses. For more information, go to cobcast.net. If you find this podcast helpful, please help us by telling your friends and rating us.
So it was complete left field thinking here for us. So we said, can we make it? And in full josh, I wrote down a product brief and stating the problem and all that. Then I get a call from the R&D director. Says, what nonsense is this product brief? You want to make a toilet cleaner without germ kill, and you want to add malodor control in that. And we were like, yes. And then I had to explain the entire process. I said, no, this can't happen. And that was the initial feedback. Then after a couple of rounds of conversation and actually telling them, like you say, taking them through the story of it, got them saying they got to see how big an opportunity this could be. In a category as mundane as toilet cleaners, you had the opportunity to invent something new. So they said, let's talk about it. Let's figure something, leave it with us. And then we found that there was this campaign Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was running. There was this famous presentation that Bill Gates did by carrying a jar of feces onto the stage and spoke about how the Swachh Bharat toilets are not being used by the people who it was built for. And that they're taking it up as a cause to get people to use these toilets. We said, wow, that sounds very close to what we are trying to do. So let's find out what they are doing on this front. Then we reached out to them, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and then realized they're working with Firmenich. For Firmenich, for people who haven't worked with Firmenich, is that they're among the world's number one flavor and fragrance creators. They were like half an hour from the record headquarters. And they were working on this project. So we reached out to them and they were like, oh, we were looking for a partner like you to do this with us. So let's work on this together. And that was it. People said, let's start working together. And we started working together. So it took about 6 months of us trying to see how we can control malodor. So we would spend days on end. They'd converted an entire conference room in their office into a room with 20 toilets with glass doors. And these toilets, they replicated the different kinds of bad smelling toilets that they could create.
Wow.
And they created the bad smell first. And then the benchmark we took was that so there's a temporary fragrance you get by using detergents in the toilet. So people use detergents in the toilet to clean the toilet. But that doesn't control the malodor. It only gives you fragrance. So we had to beat that in fragrance and control the malodor. That was the product brief. So we'd spend an entire day smelling toilets.
Very nice. That I think should be part of your job description because you were working on the toilet cleaners technology.
I have cleaned at least 100 toilets on different projects on Harpic because cleaning toilets is part of my job description. Smelling them wasn't.
Okay, interesting. So this entire trip, resulted into you guys discovering what is the issue, why is Harpic not getting used, and thereby getting a very, very different product brief.
Right. A completely different insight. Saying if you want to penetrate into this market, the only way for you to do it is by creating a product for them and not by getting them to use a product you already made for these toilets.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So, for all the budding marketers out there, what are the key lessons that you would want to point out?
See, the main points here is that nothing beats ground zero. I said nothing beats being on the ground, talking to the consumers and the actual stakeholders. This kind of an insight is not going to come to you from Google search. You have to be on ground to actually understand what their lives are about, how this works, why it doesn't work, all of it. And the other one was about being open-minded. And the moment you're open-minded, your strongest of consumer insights are lying in plain sight. You just don't acknowledge them as an insight when you just don't pay attention to them. And the other one is that even the mightiest brands exist to serve the consumer. You've got to understand what the consumer's need is and how we can make a difference to the consumer's life. It doesn't matter if you're an MNC, you're a local brand, you're a billion-dollar brand. It doesn't matter at all. You need to serve the consumers the best you can, and that's the only way you can survive. And the other very philosophical bit that kind of hit me was that once the JTBD, the job to be done, is clearly defined, the resources come in and stakeholders take up responsibility almost magically. And this JTBD is a lot about storytelling, yes. But the moment there is a challenge that can make a marked difference, I know you spoke about in one of the previous episodes about can it become a project that will shine the light on people within the system?
Yeah.
And this became one such project.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the lessons that I got from this experience. But the other magic was that the technology these guys actually developed. All the time they tried covering up the smell. Covering up the smell just didn't work. Then they came up with this technology that would block the bad smell receptors in the nose.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
If you use this toilet cleaner, it will keep releasing the molecules which block your nose's capability of getting the bad smell for up to 3 hours. And that was just magical. Now, I'm not sure if that's the formula that's launched as the 5 rupee Harpic today, but that's where we were headed at this point. So I don't have the results of this. That's why I don't call it a case study. But the other challenge was to get a non-acidic formulation done and still offer the cleaning without the germ kill. So that was completely R&D's, I think it's R&D work. It was just brilliant. It's just working with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the grants they were giving Firmenich, working with Firmenich, and the commitment of all stakeholders involved was just phenomenal. And when people talk about international bodies kind of looking to solve problems, I think this is one of those issues that completely disconnect people, put their head together to find solutions for. I think that's brilliant.
Okay, excellent. No, I really love the lessons that you spoke about. And I love the fact that a lot of them speak to that last to last episode that we recorded, which is 5 qualities of a great marketer. So there was fair bit of storytelling in what you did. You spoke about, nothing beats getting to ground zero. And the fact that even the mightiest brands serve the consumer. Both these are about consumer centricity, being closer to the consumer, being crazy about what the consumer said. You also spoke about, being open-minded, because your insights usually are lying around you, and which is about being super curious, about having intellectual humility. And last but not the least was about the JTBD and the whole You said that everybody was working in a magical fashion around the cause, which is about you becoming the king without the crown. And then, building a mission so that everybody works with you so that they get their chance to shine under the sun.
Absolutely.
Excellent. I guess a lot of us can relate to it as well. I'm sure most of our guys wouldn't even know about how these toilets, etc., work. So this is the first time we are getting to understand what works behind the scenes in Swachh Bharat.
Right.
But this seems like very, very interesting experience to be a part of.
Oh, yeah. It was mind-blowing.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for sharing with us, Sharan.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBCAST.net.